I think one of the things that I was saying earlier is that I am so excited and I'm so passionate because so often parents are calling us and they need help, not tomorrow, not 3 months from now, but they need help yesterday.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can feel the desperation. It's so palatable. And now we're able to give them that help, and we're able to do it now and immediately.
Which is just like, if you're in the industry, you're like, well, you can't do that. I mean, so what's the old style? Like what have people, and what have we been doing? What have we been doing for many years? And like, what does pretty much everybody do in this industry, for example?
Yeah, I think this track that we found ourselves stuck on in doing what we knew, which was, sure, I can give you a comprehensive assessment. That's what your school is saying you need. That's what your pediatrician is recommending. Absolutely, we can do that. And here's the process. We're going to get you in for an intake. And then we're going to do all this testing, and that's going to take a couple of weeks. And then we're going to have a feedback, and that's going to take us a little bit to look at all that data and put together feedback for you. And then about 2 to 3 weeks after that, you'll have a written report. So, in 2-3 months, we can get you what you need.
And that's if you can, one, call a center and get them to either answer the phone or call you back. And two, they can see you immediately. Otherwise, you're you're going to be on a 3-month wait list. And then that process, so, we're talking, if you're lucky, 3 months, more likely 5 months. And then what happens in this traditional model?
Yeah. It's a really good point, because so often people will call, and when I pick up the phone, they express so much gratitude for even being able to talk to somebody.
Right.
And when they say things to me like, oh my goodness, I called such and such hospital and they told me that they have a wait list for 6 months to a year. We're so grateful that you could get us in. And I find myself feeling that frustration when I call a doctor's office and have to wait 2 months for an appointment. So the idea that we can get people in immediately and start getting them help immediately is so exciting.
Well, both of us worked together up at Stanford before we started this. And when I left, and you left a little before me, when I fully left, the wait list was a year. And now, because we still have colleagues up there, they send us clients all the time from Stanford because they can't see them for a year. And even if you get on that wait list for a year, you're lucky to even have that, because a lot of people can't even do that.
Good point. Actually, someone recently called, and they said that some of these larger facilities, hospitals, larger clinics, have actually discontinued their wait lists.
Yep.
Because it's so far out.
It's crazy. Yeah.
So, when we tell people, we can absolutely get you what you're calling for. If you want a comprehensive evaluation, we're going to give you that to you. And while you're waiting for that, let's start helping you now.
Okay, so to me, this completely turns upside down the industry. Like, what do you mean everybody else has a 2 to 3 month process and a wait list and all this stuff? Dr. Barrett, how in the world? What are you talking about? You can see me within a week or two and get somebody started on feeling better and accommodations right away. Like, how are you doing that and nobody else is? Like, what are you talking about?
I think what it boils down to is that when somebody comes to us, our goal is beyond the assessment. It is beyond getting you accommodations at school and getting you a label. What it's really about is helping you now to get what you ultimately want, which for the majority of people who call us is not accommodations and is not a label. It's, I want to help my kid. I want to help my kid be the best version of themselves. I want my kid to not come home crying every day from school because they're so overwhelmed. I want my child to have successful relationships. I want to change the path my child is on because right now they can't pay attention in school. And so they're not learning anything. They're feeling overwhelmed. They're thinking that they're stupid, but they're really bright. How do I change this around for my kid? And so that's where we come in.
Yeah.
And what we're able to do is start them right away on this truly transformative process now and get them on the path to changing their child's life now while they wait for the documentation they need. And so in doing that, if we're able to do a few start out off the gate running with a few basic assessment measures and give them a little letter to their school so they can get some accommodations immediately that are going to help them while they wait for the greater assessment, now we've got them going immediately instead of waiting 3, 6, 8 months down the
That, I mean, that is, I mean, if you think about, well, like what people need and you can deliver that, and what you're talking about is by the time people call us, they're suffering. Like they didn't be like, you know, they woke up one day and, oh, they're having a slight reading problem. I think I'll get help. This has been going on for a while. They're frustrated. The school has tried to help them, or maybe not. They've talked to other people. And what's interesting is everybody, I'm quite certain, starts with, how do I help my child overcome this problem? And somewhere along the line, that switches to, I need an assessment and accommodations. And it's like, wait, let's go back to helping your child. And, you know, the longer, the worse it becomes, right? So, but if we can help them earlier, and then what do you mean? Like, how come everybody else's, the process is 2 to 3 months, but you're saying you can help them right away? How do you do that?
So what we're going to do is we're going to get them in. We are going to, you know, now that we're operating remotely, that's really been, I think, another silver lining of this pandemic is we're able to reach so many people remotely that we otherwise couldn't serve.
Yeah.
But we are going to get the equipment out to their house so that immediately we can do a brief assessment with them, where we'll integrate some information regarding the inner workings of their brain by getting a brain map, and we'll integrate those with what we hear in the intake with the parents, some standardized assessment battery. Based on that information, based on that initial information, we're going to give you, the family in need, a letter to take with your school that lets them know that these are our initial impressions and this is what could help them in the school environment. And at the same time, with the equipment that we send you to their house, with the equipment we send to their house, we are also going to immediately get them started on foundational brain training. And what this foundational brain training is really going to do is build up the brain and optimize the brain and get the brain to a place where it's the best version of itself and it's the most optimized, so that after we built up this amazing brain foundation, we can then layer that, give it an icing on the cake, and then give them additional skills to further optimize them with cognitive skills training. So if we're able to build up that brain muscle to its best place and get it optimized, then we can layer on these additional skills. And by starting that process, we have begun to put your child on a path to success and being the best version of themselves and breaking down the barriers that are getting in the way. Because truth be told, in the long term, extended time, preferential seating, copies of lecture notes, they're going to be helpful right now while you're optimizing the brain. But in the long term, we don't want our kids to be dependent on those accommodations. We want the kids to be dependent on themselves and to be able to be, again, that best version of themselves without the access to all these accommodations in the school environment.
What was fascinating to me is psychiatry and psychology are one of the few disciplines that don't look at the organ that they're treating, right? So psychology, since the 40s and 50s, it was like the black box. What's in there? Well, we don't know. It's input output. What's the output? That's neuropsychological assessment. So you look at all this stuff. In the 70s came imaging, and 80s, 90s came more like functional imaging. But we can actually do a map of the activity of the brain and look at what it's doing and include that in the assessment. Like, that's super powerful. If you did the most powerful assessment, what test would you pick? Well, you ought to look at what the brain's doing, and then you ought to look at what it can do and the correlations together, because that tells you what you can do about it. And so you don't need to wait. You can actually start getting better today. And, when we think about those foundations training, it's kind of like people are trying to, the approach historically has been like this outside in, if you want to read better, you focus on reading, or you do this like executive function coaching and all these things. And while they can help, it's limited. If there's something going on at the level of the brain and this activity, so you can only get so much better. And, in this research study we did with Sally Shaywitz and Bennett Shaywitz, and looking at this, and, maybe even looking at other alternatives to do that, we're doing those things to see like, well, what else is possible? So through this process, and, we've been doing this for 14 years, we had no idea what we were going to discover. But I'm pretty sure we've discovered the secret. And that is, if you do the opposite, if you work from the inside out and you like till the soil, plant, you put the fertilizer in there. In other words, you improve the level of the functioning of the neurons, the connectivity, the axons, and the speed at which they process, and you make the brain better and function better. Then when you go from the outside in, it works better. And it's like, well, duh. But,
it really, yeah.
You only know that if you've been doing this for over a decade and you see thousands of neuropsychs and you see the progression, you're like, well, that's how it works. And that's how our clients get through, and they eradicate, they no longer have a reading disorder or an attention problem or executive function problem. And that true potential, like that purpose in life, can actually be realized because their parents have provided this amazing system that we can guide them through. And it's like, I think it was fascinating. We were talking about this earlier. Somebody comes to you and says, well, I want a neuropsych, and they're suffering today. And you felt like, I kind of have an ethical obligation to tell you what's possible, because if I don't, I can't live with myself that your kid's suffering right now, and I kind of know how to help.
It was a really striking example. It's sometimes a matter of, we don't know what we don't know, right? And so somebody comes to me seeking help for their child, and the help they believe that they're seeking, or that they've been told that they're seeking, is go get a neuropsych exam. And so a family comes to me wanting a neuropsych assessment for their child, who is incredibly bright and is slated to go great places and has been working so hard and probably has been compensating for these areas of weakness for a long time and doing so really well. And they've hit a wall.
Yeah.
And now everything's spiraling, and the mood is spiraling, and they're becoming withdrawn, and they're refusing to talk to anybody, and their grades are totally tanked, and the school is willing to do anything that can help. And so off come this family to see us who wants a neuropsych exam. And I'm sitting there and I hear the family say something that perfectly aligns with our mission as a clinic, as the Abbey Clinic. And that was, we don't care where our child goes to school. And the only thing that we want is for our child to be happy. And the parents are just sitting there telling me this. And I just stopped the process of this neuropsych that we're in the middle of. And I said, hang on. And I had to take a step back because I found myself almost getting stuck in this old way of doing things again, right?
Yeah.
And I said, but we have the resource to help you right now. I said, we're gonna get you your neuropsych. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
But we don't need to wait 3 months for your child who is really suffering. And for you as a family that's suffering watching your child spiral, we don't need to wait 3 months to finish a neuropsych to get you that help that we can give you today.
Right.
And it was like a light went off.
Yeah.
It wasn't, they didn't, jump for joy and feel like everything was going to turn around immediately. But I was able to hold that hope for this family and help them see that getting them the help today was truly going to change the path moving forward for their child and really for this family, because it impacts the whole family.
Yeah.
And that's why I get so excited about what we do.
It's fascinating when you think about like Sternberg and multiple intelligences, and people, I think, make the error, well, my kid's smart. They're, maybe they're just lazy, but not everybody is like excels at everything, right? I mean, there's talented people, but you're not like the perfect, chemist and, mathematician and ballerina and, artist and all these different things. Like, we all have strengths and weaknesses, especially in today's society where everything's so specialized. You kind of have to decide like what you're going to be good at. But sometimes, even if you decide to do that, there's something holding you back. And so what we find, our most common presentation is like, there's all these skills way up here, but there's something down here and there's nothing you can do about it. And the traditional, like, well, you can medicate. Well, that'll get you here. Why? Because an attention problem, for example, is more than just like simple attention regulation. You see the executive function areas of weakness, so procrastination, difficulty with planning, organization, all the things that go with that. And there's no like there's no executive function pill, right? There's no pill for like a reading disorder, math disorder, or like, maybe you can boost emotional functioning, but it doesn't strengthen that emotional resiliency, right? But you can actually do that. You can strengthen the brain and change the outcomes. So like when your nonverbal, verbal, intellectual reasoning is way up here and your attention is down here, you can build the brain up. And when you say people to be happy, like it's kind of the only way you're going to be happy. Like we don't want to like, we're not trying to say, be happy with your lot in life, which is like underachievement. We're not trying to make you happy about that. Rather, we're trying to say like remediate, bring these weaknesses up so you can live your potential. And then you're going to have a normal life of human experiences, of challenges where you'll have the full range of happiness and sadness and, being excited and everything. And, that's what people want when people go from not talking to anybody to having like the adolescent angst and teenage drama. Like parents are happy because their kids are actually living and engaged in life. That's what we want for our young people. We don't want to just shelter and hover over them. And ultimately you can't like accommodate when you're in the work setting. You can't go to school with your kid in college and like, and so if we can get to these young people early enough before they've given up on themselves, and literally all they have to do is show up and be able to watch a movie a couple times a week, because that's the mechanism to exercise their brain. The full commitment from a parent perspective is like 5 minutes of hooking them up. And the child, 30 minutes to an hour twice a week can change their life in 4 to 6 months, which is just like, but this is the society we live in today. Like, we're lucky to be alive with the advancements in technology where you can actually do something about the things that maybe your genetic hand was dealt to you. And so you can actually, instead of living with that like you had to 40 years ago, you can actually change that. The earlier, the better. And as long as the child is still like in the game and they haven't given up on themselves, and even sometimes when they have, if they're just willing enough to show up, so we can kind of help parents light that spark within them, like deep within their brain, and start to build that out. And then they start to see them blossom. And then everybody just sits back and watches. And it's like, man, this is where you start to see the tears fall. Parents getting emotional. And quite frankly, we do too. It's like, you know, we didn't do it. You provided this amazing thing for your child. And just like a workout, like nobody can work out but your child, and they stick their chest out and they're like, look at me, I did it.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting point about you bring up when a child's lost hope. And sometimes I've worked with families where children have gotten teens or, even adults have gotten to that point where they feel really hopeless. So hopeless, they're not willing to go talk to a therapist. They truly believe it won't help. They've closed off from their parents. They won't go see a psychiatrist. They won't talk to their doctors, nothing. But we're able to get them to engage in neurofeedback because it's their brain doing the work. This transformative foundational training is really their brain doing the work. And so it is still an option even when they have gotten to that point, because we're not asking them to open up their emotions to a therapist or to discuss things at that deep level. They're not able to go there yet. And so this is a great option. The other thing you brought up is medications. And I think that's something that comes up a lot when I'm discussing this idea of this transformative brain process with families. Families either say, my child is on medication or my teen's on medication and it's helpful here, but not in these other areas, or they're on medication and they want to get off, or what do I do so that when they eventually are off medication, we're not back to ground zero?
Right.
And so I think we have that flexible approach, and we really try and collaborate with psychiatrists and pediatricians to really provide that continuity of care so that we can work with families, whether or not they're on medication, and keep those lines of communication open with their other providers so that we're just providing that comprehensive care for them.
Yeah, and it kind of, it depends on where they are, right? So if it's like, they're severely depressed or, they can't focus and pay attention. And we have the ACTs coming up in a month or two. Like what we do takes longer. Like you're not going to go to the gym and build big muscles in 2 workouts. Same with the brain training. It takes a little while. So, or maybe they're already on, medication regimen that seems to be working, but there's things that they also need. So one goal is like, well, let's get you optimized on your current level of medication.
Right.
And, through brain training, bring you up to a level. And for some people, that's the goal. And for other people, let's get you optimized on your current level of medication, or you need medication because you're seriously suicidal. Like we see that, or like you can't focus and pay attention. You need this now because you're like, it's game time. You're 11th, 12th grade. Your grades matter. You got to do something right now. But then they may want to, the second goal may be like, well, let's titrate off. I mean, most people know, if you think about it, like there's no therapeutic effects of medication unless it's in your system, right? You take the medication out and it no longer helps you. It can help like get you to a different place of like, well, now you can sit still long enough to do, training or your homework, or like, instead of being severely depressed, you're mildly depressed. So the psychotherapy works better, right? But when you combine that with things like brain training, like it just changes the outcome exponentially. Yeah, and that's kind of how we ended up in this place, like looking at multiple modalities, looking at over 30 interventions. 14 years ago, you and I took a plane trip to Chicago and discovered, the first brain training we did. And we've just been obsessively trying to figure out, like, how do we make kids better? What do we do? And then we discovered, like, wow, inside out, build the brain, build the neuropsychological skills that we just measured, do this mastery program, and voila. And it sounds easy. It's not easy, but it's so worthwhile because we literally, every Friday we talk about, hey, let's talk about some highlights. And like, sometimes we cry, sometimes we laugh, and we're just blown away because you and I were taught that this wasn't even possible. But after working with thousands of clients over the years, like, we know it's possible. And it's just quite astounding. And where else but Silicon Valley would you find something like this? High levels of technology, people that don't take no for an answer. They're like, what do you got? it's not good enough just to give my kid medication and, accommodations in school. I need to know how to help them. We don't give up, and neither do they. These are our clients. And then, these kids go off, and it's just amazing what they end up doing.
I think one of the most rewarding things is when a child or a teen, kind of at the end of the process, gives a feedback and actually says, I don't really know if it works. I'm just fill in the blank. I'm just able to manage my anxiety better. I don't know if it works. I just don't cry as much when I get home, or I just get my homework done. I'm doing it. Like, I don't know if it really worked. I'm just get my stuff done faster. It's just me. Right. And that's the process. It's not this magic wand that we wave over somebody, this brain training. It's this watching the grass grow process that over time truly transforms the brain and is integrated into who they are.
Yeah.
And I actually think that internalization of that success and that turning it back on themselves, and I did this, I'm just dealing with my worries better, right? Or whatever the case is, instead of attributing to something externally, is a sign of great success to me.
I mean, without being too corny, it makes me, the Wizard of Oz, and Dorothy clicks her heels, and, the courage and the lion was within him the whole time. It's literally, I mean, I'm getting chills when I think about the children we've worked with Down syndrome, like traumatic brain injury, to the extent, like the top student in one of the top private schools, and, we can go on and on about, like, there's tons of them that, like, got a head injury and they're sidelined with a concussion for a year with migraines, and they work with us for 3 to 4 months after a year of not getting better, and now they don't have migraines anymore, right? I think it would be super interesting, maybe just talk in generalities, just, for confidentiality, but what are some of the outcomes you've seen, over time? What would somebody expect to see with, some of these things that they come in with, and then, like, why would you do this, and what have you seen over time?
You talk about those, what I would call the more extreme cases that we've seen, the individuals who've had the traumatic brain injuries, right? That people never thought they would drive again, or they would hold a job. What we see more regularly is, especially in the unique bubble we live in the Silicon Valley, is the bright kids who compensate for a long time.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, their strategies, because they're in these prestigious schools in the Bay Area, or maybe they go off to a prestigious college, the strategies they were using to mask their really underlying difficulties aren't working anymore. So these were the kids that were maybe staying up all night to get their homework done, and then they go to school and they're getting the A's because it's done, and it's done really, really well.
Right.
Or they can't pay attention in class, and so they are scrambling to read everything in their textbooks to make up for what they missed in class, right? Well, it gets to the point that doesn't work anymore, and then their grades start to slip, and then they come home and they're crying and they're really overwhelmed. They've held it together all day at school, so school people may not even realize they're having difficulties. But I think some of the things that I have seen is, here's an example. The careless errors that have dinged students who have worked very, very, very hard and who are very bright, but when they go to do math, they miss the second step of the math problem. They add instead of subtract. They misread the directions on a written assignment and a test, and they get partial credit. They forgot to turn in their work. And with intervention and training, those things, which seemingly small things that add up, start to get chipped away at.
Yeah.
And grades start to turn and work starts to be completed more efficiently and faster. Or the child who was coming home crying every day, there's less tears, and the child comes home and says to their parent, it's actually not that bad. I only have 4 things, and sits down at the kitchen table and jams through the homework. And the parent may say, ooh, that sounds like a lot. And the child retorts, now who's the one getting all overwhelmed?
Right.
Or the stories of the kids who started to retract and withdraw from their parents, and the parents would say, they're not talking to us anymore. I asked them how their day is. They gave me these short answers. We're riding along in the car and I can't create conversation with my kid. And all of a sudden, the parent starts to say, we're having conversations in the rides to and from school now.
Right.
So sometimes when things are going the way they're supposed to, we don't notice these struggles. But when things like conversations are missing, then it becomes notable.
Yeah.
And as those things start to turn around again, it becomes really life-changing for the families.
That's interesting. I think, some of this stuff starts out with like, oh, I'm going to help my child a little bit, to, man, I can't keep this up anymore. And what are they going to do without me? Like, that's a good thought experiment. Like, what if you weren't there to help your child? Like, what happens? Right. But then they know they need more help, or the child is like, leave me alone. But I love the car ride thing. It's like, how's the car ride? They're not talking. How's the car ride now? They're telling me all about their day. Like, we have a relationship again. So, yeah, or, the child who doesn't have any friends, like they're starting to make friends and socialize and have this social network again. Or, they've went from, severely suicidal or like suicidal, and they're pretty concerned about their child, to they're pretty happy now. So I don't know, it's just amazing. And when we start to see that potential that parents saw before all this stuff happened in their child, they get so excited about, like, yeah, I knew it was there. And they start to see their child doing that again, and they're not staying up all night, and they knew they were smart. Like you said earlier, the children just feel like so defeated and beat up, and they start questioning their intelligence, and they're surprised when the doctor, right, because the parents say, oh, you're so smart and bright. Like, we have no vested interest in like saying things that aren't true. So when we give them like real feedback, like, actually, you're very bright, they're like, really? Yeah, but there's this thing that's been pulling you back and holding you back. And that really, I think, is the first level of the intervention, because they're like, yeah, you're putting my finger on it. And we can also say, let me show you where that is in your brain. And then as they get better, like, see, that went away. And yeah, it's pretty amazing.
As we're talking, I'm really noticing that we're not even talking about diagnosis per se, right? We're talking about gaps, areas of weakness.
Yeah.
And that, I also think, is part of what's so important about this transformation that we're talking about. It is not diagnostically driven. You don't need to have a diagnosis to optimize yourself, to transform your brain. A diagnosis may be important. It may be important in order for someone to access accommodations in the school environment. But we also see people who come to us because whatever they're experiencing is getting in the way of them being the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
And whatever that may be doesn't necessarily need a label. Like, we know ourselves, and parents know their kids really well.
Yeah.
And a parent could say, my kid comes home crying every day. My kid locks themselves in their room and won't socialize with anyone. And if that's a problem. If that's getting in the way of your kid being the best version of themselves. And that's what's important, not necessarily the label that goes with it.
Yeah.
And if it's getting in the way, of your child's happiness, of their socialization, of their schooling, then it's significant. And that's all we need to know to begin in this process of ending that suffering.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of like, I'm going to use the Porsche 911 because that's, you know, I'm old school, right? I guess we could use Tesla analogies, but, you know, I'm not the electrical engineer. But, you know, it's like they're driving around with a muddy windshield and all they need to do is clean it, right? Or, you know, you need to like change the spark plugs or, you know, put headers, because the car is very top performing, but there's a couple things that might need a little tune up, right? And, you know, historically, you just have to live with that stuff, but you don't have to do that anymore. You really don't. You know, unless there's some kind of, you know, severe illness or, you know, severe impact with a concussion or something, which is not who we generally see. But even in those severe cases, they can get better. Like everybody, if you can learn, you can get better. We've seen 95-year-olds that get better. We've seen people that have been run over by cars get better. But most of our clients are like super bright, you know, 1 to 2 standard deviations above normal, but they got this thing that's pulling them back. And when you help them in this learning paradigm, they actually can get better. Like what's interesting, you see like a brain map with ADHD, you see an excessive amount of slowing in the frontal lobes. You give them stimulant medication. Well, it speeds their brain up. That's why you take a stimulant to make it faster. But what it doesn't help is the connectivity. So, you know, it's kind of like, they're trying to efficiently get down El Camino Real at 5 p.m. Doesn't work. You know, you need a 5-lane superhighway 280 at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And so
but they're being told to hurry up anyway,
right.
trying to get down El Camino, but they can't.
The light's red, man. You know, this guy's too slow in front of me, and it's all. And so, you know, and so when they have those superhighways, like you were indicating earlier, it's like, well, of course I can do X, Y, and Z. I don't feel any different, but I feel more efficient, happier, and I'm getting things done and living my best life, right? So, you know, it's amazing when we start really talking about like, why would you do this? And, you know, what, you know, the potential in people, but really if they can realize their potential and live their life's purpose, you know what's going to happen. Beyond their happiness, they're going to change the world, their own world, and the people they touch. And I love when we get people, I mean, our best referral, like when somebody does it and like, they're like, well, can you do this with my other child or my neighbor? Because they've been so impacted.
Family.
You're what?
Or my entire family.
Yeah, I mean, we've had that, and it's pretty amazing.
You know, just getting back to the mechanic example you were talking about with the Porsche and the muddy windows, I imagine myself taking my car for whatever reason to the mechanic, and they run diagnostics, right? And I imagine them calling me and saying, all right, here's what's wrong with your car, come pick it up, and having to drive away. But I still have the muddy window. I still have the squeaky brakes. Like, I don't care what it's called. How do I get this working again so that I can cruise, right? Or so that I can do it. Yeah. And I think that's what we're saying is that evaluation piece is important and it's going to inform the picture. And we're going to do that for you, but we're not going to send you away just with a label.
Yeah.
That's not the goal. The goal is to get it running again.
Yeah.
And get your kid to their best version of themselves so that they're not suffering.
That's funny. It's kind of that analogy of like, you know, I mean, you can probably take it to an old school mechanic and he takes the screwdriver and puts his ear up to the engine. And I think it's X, Y, and Z, you know, but the modern mechanic is trained in like computerized diagnostics. They know exactly, you know, and so, well, you could do the old school screwdriver assessment, neuropsychological assessment, or you can do the modern, you know, take a look at the brain activity and these amazing assessments, including, you know, like, are you looking at the auditory processing? Are you looking at the visual processing, you know, and can you use like fun things like virtual reality or watching your favorite TV show to get better? Yeah. Well, yeah, that's pretty cool. So, you know, I mean, it just depends on fit. You want the old school, the old, you know, accommodation medication model, or, you know, do you want more than that, maybe you get those things, plus you overcome these difficulties from the inside out and you get things done on your own. And that's a lifetime investment rather than, you know, some things that are going to be temporary that aren't a good long-term plan for most people.
Right.
Awesome, Deanna. Well, thank you so much for spending time.
That was fun.